The toolbox conspiracy, the hum of suburban life, was my refuge. At 31, I was an insurance agent drowning in a sea of policies and client complaints. Yard sales were my sanctuary, where I could sift through the detritus of other lives and unearth treasures with stories to tell. One Saturday, a crooked sign on Elm Street lured me to a modest house, its driveway cluttered with a folding table of mismatched items, faded books, chipped kitchenware, and a rusty red metal toolbox that stopped me cold. Its chipped paint and sturdy frame evoked my grandfather's garage, motor oil, sawdust, and a clink of wrenches. Inside were a few tools, screwdrivers, a hammer with a worn handle. Nothing remarkable, but it hummed with nostalgia. How much? I asked the seller, a man in his 60s with a face like weathered leather. $10, he said, barely looking up. We traded small talk about the lost art of craftsmanship, and I handed over the cash, pleased with my find. The toolbox sat in my garage for a week, forgotten until a sharp doorbell pierced the quiet of a late dinner. Wiping my hands, I opened the door to a stranger, a wiry man in his late 40s, his eyes burning with a restless intensity that made my skin prickle. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping the door half closed. "You bought a toolbox at a yard sale, right?" His voice was low, gravelly, like he'd smoked a lifetime. "It's mine, sold by mistake. I need it back." My gut twisted. The seller hadn't mentioned any error, and I'd paid fairly. "I'm sorry, but I bought it from the owner. Are you sure it's the same one?" "It's mine," he said, stepping closer, his breath sour. "I don't want trouble. Just hand it over." His urgency was a warning, but I stood my ground. "I bought it legally. Talked to the guy who sold it." He stared, his jaw tight, then nodded. "Fine, but I'll be back." He was true to his word. 2 days later, he returned, pounding on my door with a ferocity that rattled the frame. Through the peephole, I saw him pacing like a caged animal. "Give me the toolbox," he shouted, his voice laced with desperation. I stayed silent, heart hammering, until he stormed off. The visits escalated. Early mornings, late nights, each more menacing. One night, he tried the doorknob, and my blood ran cold as I realized I hadn't locked it. I slammed the bolt shut and called my friend Jake. "This guy's unhinged," Jake said. "Call the cops, man." I hesitated. He hadn't broken any laws yet. But a week later, at 10 p.m., the pounding became a battering ram, the door shuddering under his weight. "Open the damn door," he roared. I grabbed a kitchen knife, hand shaking, and dialed 911. "I'm calling the police." I yelled. Silence fell, followed by retreating footsteps. The police arrived, took my statement, and urged vigilance. "Keep us on speed dial," the officer said, his tone grim. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind fixated on the toolbox. Why was it worth this obsession? In the garage, I tore it apart, sifting through the tools. Then I saw it, a false bottom. Prying it open, I froze. Inside were plastic bags filled with white powder, their weight heavy with implication. Drugs. This wasn't about sentiment. It was about a criminal empire. The man wasn't chasing a memory. He was hunting his stash, likely worth thousands on the street. The next morning, I drove to the police station, the toolbox rattling in my trunk. The officer's face hardened as I explained. "You did the right thing," he said. "But be careful. If he's tied to a cartel, he won't let this go quietly." Cartel, the word lodged in my throat, a specter of violence I hadn't anticipated. I tried to resume normalcy, work, groceries, but the officer's warning haunted me. That evening, I pulled into my driveway and froze. The porch light was off, the house cloaked in unnatural darkness. The front door hung open, the lock shattered. I dialed 911, keeping the operator on the line as I stepped inside. The living room was a war zone. Cushions ripped, shelves toppled, paper strewn like confetti. The kitchen was worse, cabinets gutted, dishes smashed. Footsteps echoed from the hallway, and I pressed myself against the wall, pulse roaring. The back door slammed, and I glimpsed two figures sprinting into the shadows. Hard men, their silhouettes promising violence. The police arrived, their flashlights cutting through the chaos. They were after the toolbox. I said, voice trembling, "They don't know it's with you." "It's possible they'll come back," an officer admitted. "Get new locks, cameras, the works." I followed their advice, installing a security system and crashing at Jake's. The violation lingered, a paranoia that shadowed every step. I scanned for unfamiliar cars, flinched at every creak. The police had no updates, and the man never returned. But the specter of a cartel, a controversial web of crime tied to a $10 purchase, shattered my sense of safety. What began as a nostalgic whim had dragged me into a dangerous underworld, proving that even the smallest bargains can carry deadly secrets. The tape that whispers. My job in tech was a high-stakes grind, so yard sales were my rebellion, a chance to tinker with relics like vinyl records and VHS tapes. Rewinding a tape, hearing that software, was a ritual that grounded me. One Saturday, I hit a neighborhood sale and spotted a box of tapes for $5. Most were nostalgic gold, E.T. the Goonies, but an unmarked black tape, its label peeled off, piqued my curiosity. I tossed the box in my trunk, eager for a weekend marathon. That night, I saved a mystery tape for last, expecting a quirky home video or bootleg concert. The grainy footage flickered to life, showing a family in a cozy living room, parents and 2 kids, laughing over popcorn. But the setting stopped me cold. The couch, the chipped fireplace, the faded floral wallpaper. It was my living room, identical in every detail. My house, built in the late 80s, had been mine for 5 years, bought from an older couple with no kids. This tape, dated by its quality to decades ago, couldn't be theirs. The family's laughter faded, their eyes darting to the hallway. The kids clung to their mother, fear etching their faces. Shadows moved unnaturally, defying the room's light. A child pointed, and the mother shook her head, pulling him close. The camera jolted, whispers and muffled cries filling the audio before the screen went black. My heart pounded. Was it a prank? The terror felt too raw, too real. I re-watched it in daylight, hoping to dispel the chill. A calendar on the wall read 1992, nearly 30 years ago. Just before the tape cut out, a shadow crossed the frame, tall and angular, like a void swallowing light. The family's silent screams burned into me. I called a neighbor who'd lived here for decades. "Do you know who lived here before the couple I bought it from?" She hesitated, her voice tight. "They left in a hurry. Something about the house didn't sit right. Abandoned everything. Like they were running from something. The place sat empty for years." When I pressed, she shut down. "I don't like talking about it." The tape went into the attic, locked away. But sometimes in the dead of night, I hear whispers, faint and unintelligible, echoing the tape's audio. My rational mind screams coincidence, but my gut knows better. That family fled something. Something tied to this house. Something the tape captured. Rumors swirl about local cults in the 90s. Whispers of rituals gone wrong. Did I stumble on evidence of something sinister? A controversy buried in time? Yard sales, once my haven, now feel like traps. Their treasures laced with histories that refuse to stay buried. The mirror's keeper. Yard sales were my therapy, a break from my job's relentless pace. One Saturday, a community-wide sale buzzed with life, but a lone set up under a massive oak tree drew me in. The sign promised antiques and vintage finds. Among the treasures was a gilded mirror, its gold frame carved with vines, the glass warped with age. It was a statement piece, perfect for my living room. Admiring the mirror, the vendor, a wiry man in his late 50s with piercing blue eyes, approached. His voice was calm but carried a possessive edge. "It's stunning," I said, tracing the frame. "How much?" He hesitated, his hand gripping the mirror. "It's special. Family heirloom. You sure it's what you want?" His reluctance was odd, but I was smitten. "It'll look perfect in my living room." He sighed, almost mournfully. "All right, it's heavy. I'll deliver it." Against my instincts, I gave him my address. Hours later, his pickup rumbled into my driveway. He insisted on carrying the mirror inside, placing it against the living room wall with a reverence that unnerved me. "Take care of it," he said, his eyes scanning my home like a thief casing a mark. I locked the door behind him, a strange relief washing over me. That evening, the mirror glowed under the lamplight, but unease crept in. The next morning, a blue sedan parked across the street. I dismissed it, but it lingered, a constant shadow. By day 4, I saw the vendor inside, staring at my house. My chest tightened. That evening, the sedan parked at my curb, his gaze locked on my windows. I stepped onto the porch, heart racing, but he sped off. Sleep became a battle, the mirror's presence oppressive. I moved it to the garage, draping it with a sheet. The next night, headlights flooded my yard. The sedan was in my driveway, the vendor pacing toward the house. I dialed 911, locking every door as he circled, peering inside. Sirens blared and he fled. The police took his plate number, but he vanished. I brought the mirror back, hoping to reclaim my space, but it felt alien, as if it still belonged to him. Was he a lonely eccentric, or something darker? A stalker with ties to a rumored local smuggling ring, using heirlooms to launder money? The controversy swirled in my mind. I haven't decided whether to keep the mirror, but it sits there, a gilded reminder that some treasures carry unseen chains. I've sworn off yard sales, my trust broken by the shadow of that frame. The rocking chair's curse. Vintage furniture was my obsession, each piece a story carved in wood. At a yard sale, a rocking chair stole my heart. Dark with etched with vines, sturdy despite its scratches. I picture it by my bay window, a cozy nook for reading. How much? I asked the seller, a woman who barely met my eyes. 20, she muttered, her tone sharp. Is it an antique? I pressed. It's old. Take it or leave it. Her urgency screamed warning, but I paid, hauling it home. It fit perfectly by the window, a throw blanket softening its edges. That evening, I sank into it with a book, the gentle creak soothing. But at 11 p.m., a faint creaking woke me, rhythmic, like someone rocking in the chair. I froze, listening. It stopped, but my heart raced. The house settling, I told myself. The creaking became nightly, sometimes violent. I avoided the living room, but one morning, the chair was angled toward the window, out of place. I lived alone. Doubt gnawed at me. I marked its position with tape. At 2 a.m., a furious creaking woke me. The chair rocked wildly, the tape inches off. Stop. I shouted, and it froze, the silence suffocating. Fear took root. I heard whispers, low and unintelligible, from the chair's direction. I called my friend Anna, who laughed until the creaking started again. That's not normal, she whispered, eyes wide. 2 nights later, the chair slammed against the wall, rocking with unnatural force. I fled, dragging it to the curb with a free sign. It vanished by morning, but the emptiness lingered. Was the chair cursed, tied to some forgotten tragedy? Local lore whispered a recluse who died in that house, her grief seeping into her possessions. Had I brought home a relic of her pain, a controversial haunting ignored by the seller? I hesitate at every vintage piece now, wary of the histories they carry. Some treasures are better left behind. Epilogue, the cost of curiosity. Yard sales were once my escape, a way to touch the past and breathe life into forgotten things. But these 4 encounters, a toolbox hiding a criminal secret, a tape capturing a family's terror, a mirror tied to a stalker's obsession, and a chair that moved with a will of its own, shattered that illusion. Each item carried a story, but not the kind I'd romanticized. They brought danger, fear, and questions that linger like shadows. The toolbox dragged me into a cartel's orbit, a controversy that still makes me check my locks. The tape hinted at a cult's dark legacy, its whispers haunting my quiet nights. The mirror's keeper may have been a smuggler, his gaze a threat I can't forget. And the chair? It carried a grief so potent it moved on its own, a reminder of a town's unspoken tragedies. I've stopped going to yard sales. The thrill isn't worth the risk. Every item, no matter how innocent, could be a Pandora's box, hiding secrets that unravel lives. My home, once a sanctuary, feels like a stage for these stories, Each bargain player in a drama I never auditioned for. The past doesn't stay buried. It clings to the things we bring home, waiting for someone naive enough to claim it.